Hi y'all, it's your girl Lauren reporting live from Cooper and Sanford at George Stevens Park here in Arlington, Texas. We are Arlington Urban out here with the community and we're here to celebrate the culture of our people. Big ups to the whole AUME family where it's always Arlington first.
We own the hood. If you live by it, die by it, then, man.
Okay. Prince the Punisher.
Mr. Marvin Sutton, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. How about yourself?
Pretty good, thank you. And what do you want people to refer to you as?
Mayor, but you can call me Marvin.
Okay, good introductions. So let's start off with some background questions for you. Where are you from?
I'm originally from Southwest Georgia, and if you look at the map, the city I grew in is a small rural town of about 20,000. It's where the state of Florida, Alabama, and Georgia comes together, Southwest Georgia.
Okay, nice. And so when did you relocate to Arlington?
In 1992, after coming out of the FAA Academy as an air traffic controller, I've had an apartment in Fort Worth, which is pretty much the Euless area of Fort Worth, but they call it Fort Worth because it was annexed. And then in 92, I moved to the city of Arlington.
Okay, nice. And so tell us a little bit about your time inside of the Air Force, correct?
So Air Force, at age 17, I decided I want to do something different. And we grew up in a small rural town where most of my classmates went in the military. In my particular case, my mom had a fourth grade education. We didn't have a lot of money. We grew up in housing project, food stamps to get by. And so I decided I want to go to college, but the money wasn't there. And the next best thing was to go to the Air Force to secure those funds for college. And so I thought that would be the best alternative. I entered the Air Force at age 17. I served honorably for 8 years. Some of the things I did was secure nuclear weapons. So we have what's called a triad in the military. Mm-hmm. We have ICBM missiles, which are the missiles on the ground, nuclear loaded. We have the Trident submarine missiles from under the seas. And then we have the B-52, our nuclear arsenal. So I secured that. And then I served in North Dakota. And then left North Dakota and went to Korea, left Korea and went to Guam, and then I rotated back to the States. I ended up at Randolph Air Force Base, which is Air Force Base outside of San Antonio, where I became an air traffic controller, certified as an air traffic controller, and I got to admit it is one of the best, most challenging jobs in the world. So I enjoyed my tour of duty in the Air Force.
Oh, and thank you so much for your service as well.
And thank you for your support.
No problem. And so what are some of the big lessons that you learned while serving your time?
So, I grew up poor. I got my first credit card in the Air Force. I was really excited, just that financial freedom. Mm-hmm. I was able to purchase my very first car. I learned to drive. I never had a driver's license at home. We never owned a car, so I learned to drive. So I learned to improve my chances of being successful in the community.
Nice. So a little bit more background questions. Tell us a little bit about your family. Are you family oriented?
Oh, I am. I was the youngest of 8 kids. I do have a twin brother. And I got everything last, so to speak. Any hand-me-downs, Marvin got. Mm-hmm. If they want to play with me and wrestle with me, they picked me because I was the youngest. Yeah. Until I come back from the Air Force. And nobody wanted to wrestle with me. But I am family-oriented. I do believe in family. One of the traditions I do, Lauren, is every election, I take my kids to vote with me. Okay. I've registered all my kids to vote, and I think it's really important to have a say in how we're governed. And so we spend a lot of time talking about government and how government impact our lives. Mm-hmm. So we believe in family time. We go do movies. We watch movies at home as well.
Nice. And so how many children do you have?
We have a blended family of 6. I have 4 kids of my own, 3 boys, they're adults, and a 8-year-old. In the blended family, I have a stepson and a stepniece.
Nice. So tell us a little bit as well about your wife. She's very involved inside of the community.
She is awesome and the best person you want to have that will have your back. And I'll tell you, I've run several times, and I do recall one interesting time where we were walking, and we used to do the houses. I said, we got 200 houses to knock on today. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, can you just break down it in the streets? It's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Okay, 10 streets.
Yeah.
So, but she's always had my back, no matter through the thick and thin. We've worked together. We're compatible. We are a great couple. We're out in the community together. She's always there with me, whether we're delivering hot meals, whether we're picking up trash, whether we're doing Read Across America in an elementary school. She is the best partner ever.
Nice.
So,
and so
I'm
how
grateful.
did y'all meet as well?
Well, so I was in Washington, D.C. With my union, the National Air Traffic Control Association. We have what we call a National Union Day, where we lobby Congress about issues that affect aviation. And she had sent me a messenger on Messenger, and she said, you look familiar, have we met? And, you know, I was politically active, so you meet a lot of people during that process. And I said, no, I don't think so. And she said, I know you're an air traffic controller. I would love to visit an air traffic control facility. And so that's how we met, and then we went on a date, and the rest is history.
Wow. And what year was that in?
That was in 2015.
Okay, nice. So tell us a little bit about how you were influenced into politics, like what got you interested?
So I've always been a community activist. So in our community, we had block parties. We would welcome new neighbors. And so one day, a neighbor of mine said his home was broken into, but his kid was upstairs and the bottom floor was broken into. And I thought that could have been a dangerous situation, and we as a community have to do something. So I decided to create a crime watch group. And so we used to have a lot of crime watch groups years back. Now we don't. And that's one of the things I want to advocate for. So we discussed it, and so we built this crime watch group. And I want to be a different crime watch coordinator. You know, most crime watch coordinators say, we'll just let everybody know that there's a criminal activity going on. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to do that. So if you had your home broken into, I would go sit with you. I would listen to what happened. I would make recommendations of how to avoid the next break-in. To give you a scenario, I had a gentleman, an older gentleman, who was in the back of his home doing work on the computer, and he heard a knock on the door. Mm-hmm. He wasn't expecting anybody, and then the knock got aggressively worse, and so he grabbed his firearm. He went to the door, and the door was come crashing in. Mm-hmm. And he seen two teens, and he says, Marvin, I looked at their hands. They had no weapon. He almost fired and killed both of them. Mm-hmm. They jumped in the Cadillac and drove away. His name was Buddy. And I said, Buddy, here's what I would recommend. I said, when you're in the back, just say, hey, I'm in the back. What can I do for you? Because people need to know that you're home, and they won't try to break in because they don't know what they're walking into. Mm-hmm. And so Buddy and I had a really good conversation about ways we can protect each other and things that moving forward he could have done to avoid that type of situation. Mm-hmm. So I always sat with families who were affected by crime, and we talked about it because I need to feel what they were going through mm-hmm. and how we can improve that. So from that, I started going to town hall meetings. And one meeting in particular, a white gentleman, his son, it almost got run over on Mansfield Webb Road, which is a little bit south of where we live, where we're at now. Mm-hmm. And it's poorly lit. There's ditches, there's no sidewalks, no curb. And he said, my son almost got run over. I'm really concerned for kids' safety along that roadway. Mm-hmm. And we had talked to our councilman at the time, and he said the next bond election on the capital improvement, where we use it for construction and projects, that they would put sidewalks and roads and street lights on that road. Mm-hmm. Well, 2 years later, I show up at another town hall meeting, and I realized it did not make the cut for the bond measure. And I asked why. I said, you promised us. Our safety is important to our community. Mm-hmm. And he promised, and he pointed me to the bond committee. I said, but he's not an elected official. You are. You could have made it happen. And after that conversation, I ran against the incumbent. Mm-hmm. Not only did I run against him, Lauren, I ran against him 4 times and lost.
Oh, wow.
And then after he decided he wasn't going to run again, I ran again and I lost. That was my 5th time. Mm. My 6th time I won, and I was elected city council in 2019. That's how I got involved.
Nice. And so talking about your time on city council, how do you think that your place on city council has legitimized your place in this election for mayor?
I think I bring some experience. To give you an example, we as a council were able to private-public partnership where we were able to get a convention center, 800-room hotel, and so we're moving the city forward in economic development. We also secured the National Medal of Honor, the National Medal of Honor Museum, which should come online in 2024. So we're doing some positive things in economic development, but we're still having to struggle with the disparity in our city. And thank goodness for the Unity Council report, which shed lights on things that we probably already knew, we just weren't talking about at the time. But since I've been on the council, I have had those conversations. So I do bring some experience on economic development. We were able to balance a budget in a pandemic. Matter of fact, we lost $20 million in sales revenue from our entertainment district. But at the end of the day, we ended with a $6 million surplus because of some of the cuts and the decisions we had to make. You've got to be able to bring that experience and foresight when you lead a city of 400,000, and I bring that on the council. I'm independent, I'm fair, I look at data when I make the decision, and I'm always advocating for our community.
Nice. And so just for a couple more background questions, during your time on City Council, what have you done that's made a positive impact on the community?
So we have a gas well ordinance, and the city is still trying to get its feet on how to really implement and provide oversight. Now we're limited through a state statute which is House Bill 40, which says that municipalities cannot really regulate below the surface, but can regulate above the surface as long as it's commercial reasonable. I took a look at how we measured setbacks. Normally it's 600 feet from protected use facilities. And when I looked at it, daycares, it's from the exterior wall to the site itself. I have some concerns about that. If we have a blowout, that would compromise the safety of children on the playground. So what I'm currently doing is we're looking at amending that gas well so that we are measuring from the boundary, not the exterior wall, which increases the margin of safety. I've also advocated for more African Americans in key positions in our city. We're doing that. I've also advocated for a way that we can equitably distribute those contracts that come out of the city. We're going to create an office of diversity. Our budget also includes a MWBE manager who have real decision-making responsibility. And those are some of the things I'm proud of.
Nice, thank you. So outside of politics, what are some hobbies that you enjoy doing?
I enjoy walking. I used to bodybuild back in the day in Canada. I competed in Manitoba. I like weightlifting. I love cooking and creating new dishes. I like gardening when I can with the kids. And so those are some of the things I really enjoy, just being out with the family and health.
Nice. And so do you like any sports or anything?
I do. I love football. I'm kind of, even though we're in Texas, I'm originally from Georgia, so you do the math.
Uh-oh.
I'm not going to publicly say, I like the Cowboys. Go Cowboys.
Uh-oh. All right. So what are some of the biggest issues in Arlington that you want to address?
So we in Arlington have a disparity with access and opportunity. Opportunity for economic development, opportunity for employment, opportunity for grants, and opportunity for contracts. Those, we have to level the playing field because we've got to bring everybody up. We can't leave anybody behind. We've got to bring all neighborhoods up. We can't leave them behind. And so I want to make sure we're looking at all the decisions we're making from an equity lens.
Nice. Alrighty, so moving into some more, community-based questions. Let's start off with something that's really shook in our nation and the city as well. How do you think that the city's responded to COVID-19?
I think initially when we rolled it out not knowing the full scope of it. And so we want to ensure our citizens were safe. Then we were handcuffed by the county and the state with their rollout of what they thought. I still think the city did the best job it could to keep the citizens safe. We encouraged citizens to wear masks. We did shut some things down until we could get a grip on what was going on. I think it was the appropriate measure. I think still today we haven't reached that ideal threshold of vaccination to completely open it up. So I do have some concerns about our governor and our county judge going back to normal way too fast. So I'd like to see at least 60 to 7% of our population in Arlington vaccinated before we do.
Nice. And how do you think the city responded to the recent winter storm?
That was such a unique and difficult challenge for the city because we've never had to do that before. But I think the city brought on faith-based organizations, other organizations play a major role. What I will tell you, Lauren, I stayed up at least 2 or 3 nights till 2 in the morning getting information back to our citizens who just couldn't get a connection with Encore, and to try to get the gas restored as well as the power, because a lot of people may have had power. Some people in this area here has electric and gas. Even if you turn the electric back on, you need gas for heat, and that created another dilemma. But I did have a Zoom meeting with representatives from Atmos, and we came up with a plan that would get the power back on as soon as possible. I'm really grateful for that team. They stayed up till 3 in the morning turning power on. I'm grateful for the HOA president who worked with me throughout the night to call people who were outside the city, say, come back, we're getting power on, and now you can come back and get back to a normal life. But there were some challenges there, and when the power went out and we were doing the rolling blackouts, trying to get everybody fairly to absorb their outage, when we tried to get it back up, a lot of the equipment fell on Encore, and a lot of people went days on end without power. And a lot of people pipe froze, and I've got a lot of phone calls, a lot of texts. My heart goes out to the people that struggled during that period. It was uncomfortable. People lost a lot of food. Thank goodness we're in the recovery phase of it. But I would like to share one of the stories. I had a young lady from Nigeria, don't know who she is. She happened to get my phone number off Facebook. And you're probably aware I don't mind putting my phone number out publicly because I want you to feel connected with me. I want you to feel like I'm your next door neighbor that you can call and get answers. And so she called me. She said, Marvin, she called me Mr. Sutton. She said, my apartment's flooded. I have no power. I have a 16-month-old kid. I have nowhere to go. And on the phone, I said, it's going to be okay. Go find a hotel. Call me when you get there. I'm going to take care of everything. And out of my pocket, I did that. But I also solicited the church around the corner to help me with that. And so she's back to normal now with a 16-month-old child, and that may have left a lasting impact on her. The fact that an elected official would take a phone call from a stranger, but come out of his pocket to provide for her. So I think the city did a great job of pulling all the resources we had to try to get people back to normal.
Exactly. And it's good to build those relationships inside the community as well. So just regarding the pandemic and the recent winter storm, how do you feel about Jeff Williams' performance as mayor?
I think Jeff Williams has brought a lot of energy to the city. Economic development, the number one driver. I think you've done a great job for the city. I would like to do things a little bit different. I think economic development is fine, but we have to bring in real quality jobs. We used to have a seat at the table with Texas Economic Development Corporation or Texas Economic Development Department. We hadn't had a seat at the table in a long time. We've got to look for those high-tech research jobs that would weather a pandemic, that would weather the economic downturn. Those are the things I want, job training centers. And the biggest thing is we look at income disparity. That leads to a higher demand for affordable housing. That leads to food desert. We've got to get the income up. And when we get the income up, you'll see the field is leveled.
Exactly. Speaking of housing as well, apartment rental rates inside of Arlington and the cost of living have increased over the past decade, even though pay wages have not increased. If elected, would you make housing more affordable as a priority during your time in office?
Absolutely, but we got to work at it from two prongs. First, we've got to make sure we have adequate wages. We can do affordable housing all day long, and we have the ability to do it. I'm a member of the Arlington Housing Finance Corporation, where we issue bonds to developers, which they are able to pass on the savings from the bonds in lower rent. So we're able to do that. But my main focus is to meet the housing demand, but also make sure we get the wages up with quality jobs that are coming here. To give you a prime example, there's development going on the north side of town, and I've met with the developers. They're going to create warehouses, but those great warehouses jobs. I've asked them to at least go to the neighborhoods that are economically challenged, try to provide the training so we can bring the income levels up. And so anytime there's a development, that's going to be the ask. We would encourage them to use Arlington firms, but also diverse Arlington firms when we're doing this. Also reach out to the community, the heart of the community.
Nice. And so speaking of more jobs and everything, how do you feel about alternative stances on education and different paths of life, people that maybe don't want to pursue a college degree?
And I will say this, not everybody's meant to go to college. That's just a fact. Some people are better with skills, tech skills, and we do have technical centers. Dan Diaper is one of them where you can leave Dan Diaper and get a real quality job that pays a livable wage. So we should explore all those opportunities because we're unique individuals.
Exactly. All right. So far, how do you think the new police chief Al Jones has been doing?
I like his approach to community policing. He comes open and transparent. I look forward to working with him and ensuring his success. What concerns me is there's been a rise in violent crime in our city. We're going to have to address that head on. I think creating more crime watch groups, engaging people in the process will help. But we also got to go to these particular communities and mentor, whether it's fraternities or sororities, faith-based organizations. We've got to get in there and bringing mentor opportunities, but also job opportunities to those communities.
Exactly. So win or lose this election, do you see yourself involved in politics in the future?
Win or lose, I'm going to always be involved. I'm an activist. I want to take ownership of the decisions that are coming out City Hall, but also state and federal. And if I disagree with those decisions, I will let it be known that I disagree and maybe offer some alternatives, not just disagree, but some alternatives where we can come together and unify behind a common cause.
Exactly. So going back to COVID-19, on March the 2nd, Governor Greg Abbott announced that he was rescinding his restrictions on capacity and the mask mandate in the state of Texas. What do you think about the governor's announcement?
I think the governor jumped the gun a little bit too soon. I think our county judge went and said immediately we're not going to do it. I don't think it was the right decision. I don't think we had reached that threshold for vaccination in order to do that. I would hate to have a setback and you have to start looking at considering restricting those facilities. I think we can do it methodically. We use data to make those decisions and lead the way. I don't think the data was used in a fair manner in order to get to that conclusion, because I couldn't get to that conclusion from the data that's out there now.
And so how do you feel about the vaccine and the disparities that we see in more Black and Hispanic communities not getting the vaccine or being able to even receive the vaccine?
It do cause some concerns for me. We've been disproportionately affected from illness, but outside of COVID. And so we have to address that health disparity issue. I think we need to make it a priority for people who are disproportionately affected. I think we're working through that issue with Tarrant County and with Arlington Fire Department. And so we should see some meaningful outcome where our numbers do go up.
Nice. All right. So moving into some more just questions about gentrification. So most of East Arlington is made up of Black and Hispanic people. How can leadership prevent gentrification in the areas while still making sure that renovations are being made in those areas?
And that would be an issue for me, because you're driving out people and you're driving up rents, and the people that are there, it would be unfortunate for us to displace those people. When we come in, we have to come in with understanding and agreement with the developers that this is the real intent, to bring wages up with those communities and not just bring more of an index where people are not able to survive. And I think that whenever developers come to Arlington, we need to make that intentions real clear. Now, what I will tell you, Lauren, we do have an opportunity zone that's cleared by the governor of the state of Texas, and it's on the north side of town. It's defined by Park Row on the north side, Arkansas on the south side, and on the west side is Collins, on the east side is New York. There is an opportunity to bring in a huge development without gentrifying it and bring in quality jobs. We're just trying to get the right combination in order to do that. But I would love to see that side of Arlington become prosperous.
Nice. All right, so moving into some musical questions and creative questions. In the city of Arlington, um, local artists are known for having some support backed by the city. For example, singer Maren Morris has received a proclamation from Jeff Williams. How could popular artists from Arlington's hip hop culture, such as Splurge, Cincy Molly, The Vibrant, Nilja Wallace, Grindhard Snap, Victor Pope Jr., Scale P, Hanani, Free Game Griff, Gucci Boy Melv, BL Double, Newbie Mac, Measy Main, Gregory Stacks, continue to receive support from the city or have opportunities to showcase their talents in the city?
I think that the city can provide that connection and visibility through our media department. The city is so diverse. I mean, we are the 11th most diverse cities. We have over 100 nationalities in the city, and we have to actually explore those opportunities with those artists. What I will tell you, I had a couple of gentlemen who were pushing the historic Black College game here. Mm-hmm. And so they needed a little help, and they came to me. And so I was able to advocate not only with our Convention Visitors Bureau, but also with our staff in Arlington. So a good way to get that done is through Convention Visitors Bureau, but also through our media departments where we spotlight or showcase these artists.
Exactly. Do you listen to any hip-hop or anything? Any favorite artists?
Like jazz? Is that hip hop?
Well,
you threw me for a loop there and go, well, is that a car or an artist? No, but yeah, I do. I like jazz. It's more calming. Okay. You get introspect. You look at yourself. So, but I do listen to Drake now. Drake,
okay.
I do.
Nice. Do you have any favorite Drake songs? Anything?
Yeah, one that's really my favorite is God's Plan.
Okay, nice. All right. So aside from COVID relief, what are your plans to help the city grow in small business?
So we have to provide that atmosphere. We have to work with the local universities and colleges so they have a well-educated workforce. Business need human resources. And so we're going to provide that atmosphere. We're going to provide a one-stop shop so when you're trying to open a business, it's easier. You don't have the challenges and setbacks that some businesses do experience. And so I'm looking forward to working with the business. I want the entrepreneurs to run the business. I don't want the city to run them. I just want the city to provide the atmosphere for them to be productive.
Nice. And so how can that atmosphere be provided? Like, what are some plans, I guess, to make, or what are some problems that small businesses often face in Arlington?
Well, I think a lot of the businesses, we're looking at code issues. We're looking at health issues. And some of them seem to think that we move a little bit slower than they want us to move. And so we're going to make sure we are able to do things in a timely manner to make sure they're successful. I had a gentleman that was opening up a restaurant in Arlington, and there were some issues with the health inspection of it. And a way that we could work around it was be innovative and think outside the box, and we were able to get him open up and moving.
Exactly. Awesome. All right. So Arlington residents and business owners have expressed frustration and the increased taxes that we've seen around the city. Do you have any solutions that could support maybe lowering taxes or decrease concern amongst residents and business owners?
Yes. So our tax burden is mostly borne by residential. We don't have a good ratio for commercial versus residential, which we need to, which would put more of the residential burden on commercial. When we pay taxes as a residential, we can write off on income tax. But when commercial does become a business expenditure, what I like to do is explore, and I'm grateful that we do have a 360 corridor study, which we're looking at bringing more commercial on our side. Mm-hmm. Here's what's happening. Since we live so close to Mansfield and Grand Prairie, we don't have those retail and commercial shops on our side. Most of our citizens go over to Grand Prairie and to Mansfield for purchases that gives up those valuable sales tax dollars. Mm-hmm. We have to change that. And if we're able to lower taxes. But by bringing in visitors, but also bringing in businesses here where folks from Grand Prairie and Mansfield come over and subsidize our public safety and infrastructure. But until we do that, it'll be difficult. Mm-hmm. in order to lower those rates. Right now, we've actually lowered the rates, but you're still paying more than you normally pay, and that's a misnomer. There are some things that I think we could do. We have a airport that's a reliever airport for Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. We don't charge a landing fee, which is additional revenue coming in. We've we've got one of the best entertainment districts in the world. Because of COVID, we would have done really well, and we would be able to pass those cost savings on to our citizens. We weren't able to do that. We were just trying to stay afloat. But what we're going to try to do is make sure we develop commercial and retail property. We create real jobs that will stand the test of time, that would pass on those savings to our residents and lower taxes.
Exactly. Those are some good points as well. Okay, so going into some questions about the Arlington Unity Council study. According to the 2021 Arlington Unity Council study, Black people were pulled over by Arlington police and ticketed about 37.5% of the time. Black people make up only a small portion of the population in Arlington. This is an ongoing issue that many people, including myself, continue to deal with. If elected, how can you as mayor solve this problem?
So African American make up 22.5% of the population. Our police force is made up of 14% of African Americans. Some of the questions I asked when we did have the conversation about traffic stops is the fact that what is the race of the officer stopping? Now, what I'm being told is that a police officer 98% of the time does not know the race. And you're absolutely right, 37% of making stops are African Americans. That concerns me. Those stops are discretionary. So if you don't signal 50 feet prior to the intersection, you can be cited. And those are discretionary. And the other side of that is a lot of people in the challenging communities that are being stopped are not able to pay those fines and fees. So let's take a look at what stops are really important and really need to be made. And if they don't need to be made, we can easily send a letter saying, hey, an officer observed you doing this, and if this occurs the next time, you'll be cited. That would help with the disparity of the stops. I'm also told that 68% of the victims and suspects are non-white. That means we're basically perpetuating violence on ourselves. I don't know if that data is good. I have to take a look at it. But what I do know is 37% compared to 23% of the population cause me concerns. And what I'll be willing to do is give our police officer and police chief and encourage them to do discretionary stops and to make sure that we're doing it in a systematic way, because just looking at the numbers, they don't match to me. And at the end of the day, it shows a disparity. And it caused me concerns, and I'm not saying it's racial profiling. I'm just saying that it caused me concerns, the fact that you have 23% of the population, but they're being stopped 37% of the time. And so we would move to more discretionary stops.
Alrighty, so another question that was raised from the Unity Council study is the use of force. According to the study, white people had firearms pointed at them about 345 times, Hispanic people about 373 times, Black people about 589 times. What do you personally believe is the cause in this disparity?
It's possibly in the root of the training, and maybe we need to do a better job of how we recruit and screen the applicants. What I will tell you, Lauren, the city of Newark, New Jersey in 2020 did not have one firearm discharged by its police force, not one. And so we've got to do a better job of screening the applicants.
Alrighty, so what, overall, and you mentioned this about violent crimes earlier, what do you think is maybe a cause of the violent crimes going on in the city, or the increase?
I think it has to do with income disparity in most cases. Now, some of it has to do with domestic violence inside the household itself. Most of it has to do with the income disparity. When you're struggling with income and you have nowhere else to go, it creates some anxiety. And with that, you act out those anxieties. It becomes violently. So we have to address those issues before we can really address the violent issues.
Alrighty, so let's see. So this election is very important for you. You are giving up your seat as District 3 Councilman in order to run for mayor. What does this election mean to you?
It means a change in the guards. It means an advocate for people. It means building trust. It means reconnecting citizens with City Hall. And so I'm fair, I'm open-minded, and I look at data. I spent 30 years as air traffic controller, and all I did was process real-time data and make real-time decisions. I hold a degree in accounting. I understand the budgetary process, and any decision we weigh is we look at cost-benefit analysis. If it's the cost overrides the benefit, then we may not want to choose that decision. And so I come with a different perspective, a lens that ensures equity at all the decision making from the lowest to the top. We're going to look at equity.
And so what would make, or where do you want to see Arlington by the time that you leave office if you're elected?
By the time I leave Arlington, I would like African Americans to say it's a great place to live. Right now, a lot of businesses, African American businesses who try to do business with Arlington, feel like Arlington doesn't welcome African Americans. And so we want to change that dynamic. We are the American dream city, but we can do a whole lot much more. And so we have to address the inequities in the system. We're growing in the right direction. We're going to create more jobs. We're going to make sure that we bring all our communities up. We're not going to leave any community behind. And that's what I see as the future of Arlington.
Nice. All right, so finishing up, I just have 3 questions from some of our viewers. So our first question is going to be from Arlington Urban Viewer and Arlington rapper Free Game Griff. He asked, what would make your time in office more unique?
What would make my time in office more unique? I would be the second African American to hold office. As you know, Lauren, I ran 5 times over a 12-year period, and it's so difficult to get on Arlington Council. It's really, it's by design. The average person who just work every day, who have great ideas, they raise their family, they can't afford to get on that council unless you're an insider. This right here breaks up the good old boy network in the city of Arlington. It lets people dream that the average person with great ideas can ascend to the council. I think having an African American in there would be a great opportunity for the city to showcase its commitment to diversity, a commitment to inclusion. I'm not asking the insiders to endorse me. That's not what I'm asking. I'm just saying to take a look at my abilities, take a look at my commitment to service, take a look at my commitment to community, and take a look at who I am and what I bring to the table. Don't judge me based on because I'm not an insider, based on because this person doesn't like me. Judge me based on my character and my ability and my skills to do the job.
Exactly. All right, so our next question is going to be from Arlington Urban Viewer, D. Powell. It was asked, how do you plan to incorporate the city's plan of creating local markets or small grocers, access to safe and inclusive public spaces, and community hubs for people of color to feel more welcomed in the Arlington area?
So I'm on the Community Neighborhood Development Committee. We receive $5.7 million in what we call CBG grants, community block grants from the federal government. We solicit requests for proposals from organizations, 501(c)(3)s, that help us further advance those causes. We would be real selective in who we select to advance those causes, that create those opportunities, create those access. And so we're capable of doing just that. We do have food deserts in Arlington, and a community garden would be a great opportunity to bring the community together. But we'll look at it strategically from a city perspective and make sure that we address those inequities in our city through federal funding, through partnership with faith-based organizations, and through community commitment.
Alrighty, and our last question is going to be from Liveable Arlington. It says, in the years since gas drilling started here, a lot of peer-reviewed research has been done pointing to serious health issues from living next to drilling. Many Arlington residents have concern about living next to fracking pollution. What steps can you take to address this public health issue?
So we are addressing it, and we talked earlier about the setback. We are restricted by the state statute as what we can do. My hope is to make sure that we continue to improve that margin of safety between the setbacks. to make sure we give people the opportunity to weigh in and have a say. Right now, we have an administrative approval if there's a drill zone. It's the wells that are drilled inside that drill zone are automatically approved without citizen input. My goal is to have us revisit that. But first, we're going to get past this first step of increasing the setback and defining how it's measured. To give you an example, the measurement we use is exterior wall to the gas well. But in the state statute for alcoholic beverages, you cannot sell liquor within 300 feet of a school. That measurement is from the boundary to the boundary. Why aren't we using boundary to boundary? But we are going to change that. We're looking at it. We're going to move it through. But we have to fight in stages. We just can't go in and kick the door in. We've got to test the system to improve and protect our citizens. Now, I understand there's a possibility for some lawsuits, but the city gets sued, and we fight those, and we make a decision whether we want to or whether we want to settle outside. But I think it's more important for us to take a stance on public safety when it comes to gas drilling to protect our underserved communities. That's really important for me. The number one role of a government is public safety, bar none. That's it.
Exactly. And then I just have one last question as well. What do you think are the biggest issues that that local government handles that affects younger people or the Black community or the Hispanic community, Asian community? Why do you think that this position in this place is important and that people, say my age, should pay attention and be more involved?
So the government does 4 things, and some people are not familiar with what city council do. So city council sets tax rates. Sales tax, we just passed a ballot measure for the Economic Development Corporation, which raised the sales tax 1/4%. Property tax, we assess a value. We don't assess the value, but we assess a rate on the value of your property. We set tax rates. We adopt a budget. Most organizations adopt a budget. But we also approve ordinance, which are local laws. And to put that in perspective, the speed sign you see out there has to go through a process and has to be approved by council before that sign can be erected and before we can enforce the sign if you violate the speed. And finally, we oversee land transactions. That means we determine what parcel of land and what activity it can occur on it. So you'll see a church, you'll see a school, you'll see a commercial shop, a hair shop, a barber salon. We determine what activity goes on that land, even though you own it. That's important. That fact that I can tell you that when you go buy a loaf of bread, even though the bread costs $1, if you go buy, let's say, a can of beans, even though the can of beans costs $1, you're going to pay taxes on it. And so you're paying more than what the product costs because the government tells you have to, and you can't get around it. We have neighborhood services that we use from fire, police, parks, and recreation. So imagine if you're hurt and you need that response and you need it now and you call 911 and you get a response. You need that help. Government provides that service to you. Imagine after you've worked the whole day long, Lauren, and you just want to decompress and you want to take a walk around the park or go to a fitness center that's a facility of Arlington and work out. We provide that place for you to decompress and get away, and we provide that green space for you. Imagine if you want to go to the library and read one of your favorite books or check out a book or just get on the internet. We provide that. Those are some valuable services that the city provides for you. And what I always tell people is the only reason government exists is when you can't individually resolve a problem, you need the government resources. So with all this that the government does, you would want to take a vested interest in the outcome in your community. Let's say you have a problem with roads and stuff and you want better roads. You pay taxes. You have a right to address your government. Get engaged. And if you call Marvin Sutton, we're going to get it fixed. My cell number is 817-602-0644. I want you to know you're talking to your neighbor, and we'll work together. And mind you, I don't know all the answers. No one on the council knows all the answers. I'm willing to work with you. I'm willing to listen. That's the most important thing I can do. And hear your ideas. Let's talk them through, let's vet them, and let's implement good public policies that have a meaningful effect on our citizens and on our city.
Nice. And so where's some more information that people can get about you if they want to talk to you? You give out your cell phone number, or is there anywhere else that people can go?
You can go to my website, electmarvinsutton.com. You can email me. That's msutton, the number 4, mayor@gmail.com. I'm open. I'm accessible. I will take your calls. If I don't get back to you right away, I will eventually get back to you. I would love to hear your ideas, and that's what we're doing as we go out in the community, because we need those ideas. We want our citizens to feel that they have a seat at the table. They're in the decision making, and they can help, because when we put out public policies, we want you to embrace and support those policies. And the only way we can get you to do it is you feel part of the solution.
Nice. Well, thank you so much. That's all the questions I have for you. Is there anything else that you would like to say?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I certainly appreciate what you're doing in the community as far as media, as far as getting information out. That's valuable to our community. And so I'm grateful. I'm really, really thankful for the fact that I'm able to share my thoughts with your viewing audience. That's critical that they know where I stand on issues. Critical that they know I'm out in the community. It's critical that they know I'm personable, that I'm open-minded, I'm fair, I'm willing to listen at the end of the day and advocate on behalf of you, the citizens.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and we'll be looking forward to hearing from you some more in the future.
Thank you again, and if anybody would love to help with our campaign, I would love to have them come on board. You learn a lot more. You know my background. I spent 20 years as presiding election judge. And there's an opportunity for school kids to become election workers, so I welcome them to come on board. It pays $10 an hour, you get trained, and it gets you in the process. And we do outreach at schools, so if you would love to have me come to your school virtually and talk about elections and talk about the equipment and some of the challenges the city goes through, I would love to do that as well. I am a deputy registrar, so if you know anybody that needs to be registered to vote, I will personally visit them and register them to vote.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you as well.